In the summer of 2020, I live in San Diego, by the way, so I live near a beach, like you. And in that summer, a friend and I met up on the beach for a long walk. It was when they had finally reopened the beaches, right? But they made us mask on the beach. About halfway through the walk, I took off my sandals to wade in the water, and it felt lovely for about a minute, but then, ow! There was a sudden burning feeling in my big toe, and I jumped. I looked down where my foot had been, and I saw a small bee body lying on the sand. Oof, I had been stung by a bee right on the tip of my right big toe. No lifeguard station was in sight with bee sting treatment or anything like that, so I kept walking. Quite a long way, in fact. I leaned toward the outside of my foot as I stepped to keep the pressure off of the throbbing big toe. But by the time I got back to the car, the opposite side, the pinky toe side of my foot was in pain. The toe, the arch, the heel, and the ankle had all begun to hurt, and I even had some pain shooting up to my knee. I was so confused. The bee had stung me on the left side of my foot, but the right side of my foot hurt like the dickens. I put my feet up at home, and I saw a red bump forming at the base of my pinky toe. Remember, that wasn't the toe. And that big toe wasn't even really hurting anymore. I got up after a time of elevating my foot, and then it started to hurt to put my foot down on the floor. So I started walking around the house with a limp. And over the next few days, the limp persisted, and the whole system of my legs, my knees, my hips was getting off kilter. I was even getting increased neck and shoulder pain because of the way I was moving. So a week later, the bee was gone. The swelling was gone. You couldn't even see the site of the sting anymore, but I was in pain all over. My body, that summer of 2020, became a metaphor for how a person or a whole congregation can act when something injures us, spiritually, relationally, or emotionally. Our attempts to address that pain sometimes, ironically, create the conditions for more pain, and sometimes continue beyond the thing that originally caused the pain. We try to save ourselves and others from pain by keeping secrets, or by forming alliances, or by keeping away from the people who've caused us harm. We try to save ourselves from pain by getting reactive and defensive and casting blame. It's their fault. We try to save ourselves from pain by compensating, by creating workarounds, and avoiding those unnecessary difficult conversations. Avoiding necessary difficult conversations. But those defenses end up inflicting pain on other people. And in turn, the community inflicts more pain on us. We try to avoid pain, but we make more of it. And my goodness, there is so much pain in the air right now. Personally, I felt a wall of fear and trauma response overtake me on election night. I know I'm not alone. Trauma is defined as emotional distress resulting from an event that overwhelms the capacity to emotionally digest it. And it lives in us as individuals and communities, and it often makes us oversensitized to the possibility of threat because we are overprotecting against the possibility of future trauma. And some ways that's helpful, but mostly it's harmful to ourselves and to others. And this congregation has its own legacy of difficult events that were emotionally distressing and in some cases overwhelmed the people's capacity to emotionally digest them. Sam has spoken one-to-one with so many of you here in this community who are carrying real hurt from events in the congregation. Events as recent as this fall, events as long ago as 40 years. Though First Unitarian has a meaningful and good legacy on this island, members have shared many experiences of painful conflicts, division, secrecy, boundary violations, core people leaving, and broken trust. And with all of that, so many painful things have been experienced in the body of the congregation. It's not even it seems you're not even quite sure as a congregation how that body can move without hurting in some way. We've heard so much heartbreak in the things you've shared with us. You are good and worthy and beautiful people, and yet all of that pain has made it hard to just enjoy and love one another. And we have all, the first few members, the first few leaders, and me at the UUA, we have all responded to First Unitarian's problems in ways that were intended to save First Unitarian from pain, but ended up inflicting more pain. Like keeping a secret that we were afraid would cause harm. Like cutting off communications because we were afraid we'd blow up if we didn't. Like apologizing for someone's destructive behavior because we wanted harmony and peace. Or like thinking a lot about how to protect one person while not thinking about how that might impact someone else. All of these ways we have been are not bad ways to be. Sometimes they are extremely well intended, and sometimes they're just knee-jerk reactions. They weren't bad ways to be, but because we didn't get at the root of the problem, we ended up moving together in ways that kept the cycle of pain going. And I recognize as your primary contact on regional staff for these past 5 years that I, like you, have been caught in this dynamic of not knowing how to stop the pain in one place without triggering pain somewhere else. So I wonder, this week, can we break through this together? If we are going to heal ourselves in this world, we are going to need to learn to hold our pain in a different way, to clean up our pain, making it part of our story, part of who we are, but not the kind of pain that keeps wounding ourselves and others. Resmaa Menakem, a somatic healing practitioner and author of My Grandmother's Hands, talks about what he calls clean pain. Clean pain, he writes, is pain that mends and can build your capacity for growth. It is the pain you feel when you know what to say or do, when you really, really don't want to say or do it, and when you do it anyway because you are responding from the best parts of yourself. And also, in order to disrupt that cycle of pain, we need to get more curious about the cause. Not as a way of blaming or shirking responsibility, but as a way of knowing our own story as a community. The transformative community conferencing approach will engage all of us in large and small groups, exploring the stories that we've experienced and the stories we tell ourselves, all with the understanding that the people are not the problem. The problem is the problem. When we name what our community's bee stings were, when we start to name the problems we were trying to solve by moving in the way that we moved, the healing can begin. That summer of 2020, I had to slow down and notice how my body was feeling and how it was moving on the level of joints, tendons, muscles, nerves. And I noticed that the source of the problem seemed to be emanating from my foot near the ankle. I decided to visit a podiatrist. Turns out I had a stress injury in my foot along the sural nerve, an injury from my startled jumping away from the bee sting. And once I tended to the site of that injury with a shot of cortisone, the healing of the rest of my system could begin. Because the podiatrist and I found the problem, I was able to change the way I moved my body. This is what I wish for First Unitarian this week. I hope that you can really feel that the people are not the problem is the problem, and that you can gently name those problems, tending to them through your storytelling and your connection building, so that those problems can find resolution, so that you as a congregation can learn to move differently, healthfully, naturally, and with so much less pain. We are able to create new patterns of how we work out our differences and enter into more faithful, creative, just, and loving ways of being together. And in those faithful, creative, just, and loving ways of being together, we can find our purpose, our vision, our vigor again. We can minister to one another and minister to this world that so desperately needs us. Difficult and painful things will keep happening in our lives and our congregation because we're human, right? But we can move differently when they do. And amazingly, in 2022, the universe, our blessed universe, gave me another chance to hold my pain in a different way. This time I was walking on a beach about 50 miles north of the old one. The water felt cool against my feet, and ouch! I stepped on a bee again. It really hurt. But this time I actually didn't jump. I didn't even walk on the opposite side of my foot. I just kept walking like normal. Ow, 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 ow. Every step hurt. But within an hour, the pain was completely gone, and the rest of me felt fine. I let myself be present to the pain. I processed it without defending against it. It was clean pain, felt, acknowledged, and held, but not increased. My body was able to put all of its healing powers toward the healing of the problem, the wound, the sting. And within an hour, my toe was healed. May it be so for you in your own life and in our collective lives at First Unitarian. Amen. Blessed be.